to start this video, I'm going to give you guys a very quick TLDR because some of you guys might click into this video and just want to know exactly what to do, and you can learn it as you play. So here's the TLDR. Blade shift, going into fundamental blade. You're going to take twisting blades into advanced twisting blades. This is the cooldown. Reduction, don't really worry about this passive. It's just something I'm kind of messing around with. It could have some value, could be replaced. Shadow step and dash, very important with this build in my opinion. You get the extra 8% crit there. I like the extra 20% crit damage buff that you get from this. And then you have Dark Shroud. I prefer Dark Shroud over all these other skills. If you want to know, just watch the video. That gives survivability. No imbuements, which I explain later in the video as well. And then Shadow Clone, which gets a cooldown reduction. Well, not reduction, but your cooldown constantly comes down by spamming Twisting Blades, which is what this build revolves around. Twisting Blade spam, and we take both of these. And of course, we are taking the Inner Sight. That's the TLDR. Oh, and the equipment that you need. You definitely need the Twisting Blades legendary aspect, which is this right here. The Shadow Step also helps, but this is big. And this imprint here, I don't know if this could be best, but right now it's really nice. This imprint is definitely the one that you need to make this build work. Done. All right, guys. So a lot of people are asking me about this build. I was planning on doing it off stream, recording it off stream, and then posting on YouTube because, as you guys know, the beta test is consuming a lot of our time. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this live and cut this and then upload it to YouTube so you guys can get it. Hopefully try it before the end of the beta. So this is in reference to my Twisted Blades Shadow Clone Rogue build. It's a melee DPS Rogue build. And I'm going to show you exactly how I'm playing it, exactly how we're building it. All right, guys. I want to make this very clear that this is not an endgame build. It's impossible to know what builds are going to be the best at endgame right now. And we don't know what all the available legendaries we have in this game, and one or two clutch legendaries could completely change everything, right? For me, I really liked the mechanic of Twisting Blades, and I wanted to create a build that was around it. And I feel like the build that I found right now, unless something gets changed, I think it's going to be a very strong build even in the end game. And as we go through this tree, hopefully you'll understand why I feel that way. Let's go over this one by one. Taking blade shift here. We go enhanced blade and fundamental blade here. It's the fastest animation. Like, of all these skills, it's really fast. Okay. But you're mainly getting this because you're getting the movement speed from it, and you can move through mobs. And Twisting Blades, which is the next skill that we take here, essentially you attack what's in front of you, and as you move away, the blade that you use to attack in front of you, it comes back at you like a boomerang, and it hits everything in its path, right? And obviously, if you can move through enemies and have fast movement speed, that's a plus. So that's Twisting Blades. Super fun skill to use. In my opinion, one of the most fun skills. This is one of the most fun builds I've ever played in any game. Super fun. We take Twisting Blades here, and then we go into advanced. I like taking the cooldown reduction here. It's really clutch. This is one of the key components to this build, especially running Shadow Clones, which we'll get into. I don't really take the dazed here. Next, we need maximum mobility. So I'm going to take Shadow Step. I'm going to take Dash. I took this passive with Stutter Step just to test. It could be good, it could be bad. This is like one of those passives that I just don't know, because we don't know at end game exactly how much crit we're going to have. We don't know exactly how much movement speed we're going to have. So obviously, if we have enough movement speed, we don't need this. I'm kind of thinking we might not need this Stutter Step here, because you're going to get a lot of mobility from Shadow Step and Dash. Just the fact that we are able to find a Shadow Step legendary that gave us an extra charge, that legendary alone really brings the value of this passive down. But I was testing it, so that's why it's there. I don't think it's bad. Okay, we take Shadow Step here to get that extra crit. We're trying to get some crit right here. Our crit rate isn't amazing, but we are still at the early game, but we don't get a lot of crit from our actual build. So you take it where you can get it, and you also use Shadow Step before your big burst windows quite a bit. So this just makes sense. You can also take this. If you take methodical Shadow Step, this will essentially be your only hard CC in the entire game. It's a stun. I don't have enough skill points. I wasn't able to take it, so I didn't take it. Dash is another really good one, and I chose to actually go enhanced dash because if you can get some of that crit rate up, and you have a lot of hits with this because you're spamming Twisting Blades. This right here, critical damage 20%, pretty fucking good in my opinion. So I've decided to take enhanced dash. Is this a mandatory? Probably not. Will this require more testing? Absolutely. Could this be completely smoked endgame because there's, you know, a lot of access to crit damage? Possibly. If that's the case, you're not going to take this, okay? Another really good passive to take would be weapon mastery here. This is a flat damage buff. I would have probably taken this instead of stutter step, but whatever, we're in the beta. I don't feel like respecing, and I'm done anyway. I already have an understanding of the entire skill tree, so I'm good. We take that, and then we go into subterfuge here. I'm taking dark shroud. The other weakness to this build, guys, is that you don't have a lot of survivability. Okay, we're pretty squishy. You have god tier mobility. I don't think there's a single class, maybe outside of a fucking teleport Sork, maybe, that has as much mobility as we do. Practical mobility, I really think that this class in this spec could have the best mobility in the game. Certainly S tier if it's not the best. So you actually forfeit, on top of the CC that we just talked about and Vaughn and some other things, you're also forfeiting survivability, and that's why I've taken Dark Shroud. The other options are Concealment and Smoke Grenade, and I've tested this quite a bit, as much as I can. I just don't find the value in these two skills to take over Dark Shroud. First of all, again, we're squishy, we need survivability, and countering Dark Shroud, getting that extra crit in the early game, definitely worth, because we don't have much crit. But having this and then this gives us an 18% extra crit. And even at the end game, I'd imagine that to be pretty good. And I also have the option to take movement speed instead of crit if crit is very accessible end game and movement speed isn't. Because movement speed and crit are both very important to this build. And I just have the option with it on top of the fact that I'm going to be a lot more tankier. Keep in mind, this has a cooldown of 20 seconds, but because we're playing a cooldown reduction build, where every single time you're using Twisted Blades, you are lowering the cooldown on Dark Shroud, as well as the ultimate, which is what we're going to get into here in a bit. So you can effectively have permanent uptime on Dark Shroud. In fact, if you're really good and you're really positioning well, you're going to not even have to use this skill because you still have the auras, the shadows around you, and because they only go away when you're taking damage, right? So like you might not even have to use it. So it's a nice little passive that you have that gives you survivability, which is something that we lack. Concealment, I've tried this. The value in concealment is that you get movement speed, but the problem is, just like most ARPGs, if you get to the end game, and I've seen end game footage with Diablo 4 as well, it is similar to like Diablo 3 and Path of Exile. It's slower, but it's similar in the sense that you're literally going from pack to pack and just spamming and just blowing things up, right? So it's a very fast-paced game style. It's not the kind of gameplay where it's like you're very methodical and tactical, where it's like, all right, I'm going to use 3 skills here, I'm going to use an imbuement here, I'm going to go into concealment, I'm going to set up the burst, get that guaranteed crit from countering stealth. It doesn't work that way. I don't think the game is designed to be like that. It's an ARPG at the end of the day. A lot of MMORPG players that are playing this game might think that, but it's not. You're going to be like my build right here. As you're going to see gameplay at the end of this video, you're going to see that this is very much in line with what builds typically look like in these endgame ARPGs, where you're just spamming. It revolves around 1 or 2 core mechanics and you're just spamming it, right? So this right here, I just don't find the value because on paper, oh, you get a guaranteed crit. I mean, first of all, if you have 50 to 60% crit rate anyway end game, is this really going to be that valuable? And even if you don't, again, this is not a tactical type of game. It's going to be pretty spammy at end game is what I'm thinking, is what I've seen from gameplay already. And I've tried this. I've tried it. It just doesn't work because in concealment, if you go into concealment for the extra movement speed, you're not attacking. And if you come out of it, then you get 1 attack. And if you see the gameplay footage, I'm getting multiple. I'm just spamming the fuck out of Twisting Blades. Only one of those is going to be a guaranteed crit from this. So I just don't find the value here. The value would actually be from Vulnerable because we lack Vulnerable. So I don't know, off the top of my head, it'd probably be somewhere between like a 20, 30, 40% uptime on Vulnerable if you can have high uptime on this. But not even to be perfectly honest, because you have to come out of concealment. So it just doesn't make sense. Like I feel like you're losing DPS by playing around this concealment. It's for survivability. So if it is for survivability, I would rather have a passive survivability skill that also gives me crit. For me, that's what it is. The other value would be from energy, but if you're playing this build correctly, the energy, it really is not an issue. I'm already finding it not an issue even at level 25, and that energy regen just gets better. Okay, so there's that. Exploit, this is also a good passive here. As you guys know, end game, you're going to be blowing up packs and having an extra 18% damage to healthy targets. That's pretty nice. It makes your first hit just hit much harder. So I really like taking exploit here. And as far as smoke grenade goes, I think this is definitely viable. It's a nice little CC that you get, which is effectively defense because you're not taking damage. And also you get a long CC because if you are able to get chill, slow, or vulnerable on the target, you could really CC this thing for a while. If you put points into this, you're essentially extending the day's duration. But I just feel like this has way more value than smoke grenade. And to be honest, with this build that I'm running, I don't have a lot of access to vulnerable, so it's like I'm not really gonna be getting this extra day's duration that much based off of with the build that I have. I'm certainly not running any imbuements, so I'm not going to get it from chill, and I don't have any slow right now at this point in the game. So for me, I think Dark Shroud is definitely the play. Imbuements, I've tried imbuements a lot, and I just don't find the value here. I've tried all the imbuements. Of these 3 imbuements, I would have to say that I think Shadow would probably be better. But what Shadow imbuement gives you, it just gives you that extra AoE damage, which is like, I don't feel like you need it, like, because you're one-shotting all these packs anyway. And for a single target boss, if you take Shadow imbuement, you're going to be giving up Shadow Clone or Dark Shroud. Let's just assume that your subterfuge skills are not touched. Okay, I'm going to talk about Shadow Clone here in a second, but I don't think that Shadow Imbue will... I just don't see the value in taking this over Shadow Clone in any way. In any way. And you have to understand that also Shadow Imbuement, it only affects your next 2 skills. One of the things that I kind of felt was smudged about Shadow Imbuement, outside of the lucky hit chance mechanic, keep that in mind, lucky hit chance, you only get it on 2 imbuable skills. So if you use Shadow Imbuement, your next 2 skills that you use are going to be the ones that are imbued. Okay, so all this stuff that's over here, it's going to be affected by your next 2 skills. The issue, one of the issues, is that your Shadow Step and Dash, which you're using constantly in this build, are also imbuable skills. So if you imbue and you use Dash, then you've now just used one of your charges on your imbue. And you want to use the imbued skills on your Twisting Blades. So that in itself is kind of wonky to play around, and I didn't really enjoy it. So for me, this can definitely work. I just don't see this being better than Shadow Clone, and I've tested it. So as far as Shadow Clone goes here, this is a skill that I wanted to see if I can make work. And if you take the next 2 passives here, the Shadow is dealing 80% of your damage. So if all your damage is coming from Twisted, if you've got a clone that's sitting next to you, copying what you're doing and dealing 80% of the damage that you're doing, you think of it kind of like a 2v1. What balances this is the cooldown, but the thing is, Twisting Blades reduces the cooldown on Shadow Clone. So if you see some of the footage that you're about to see, if I can just spam my right mouse button, I can effectively have a 100% uptime on Shadow Clone. Usually you're not going to, because you have to move around a little bit. So if you run around a little bit, you'll have like maybe 3, 4, 5 seconds that you're waiting for this to come off cooldown if you're playing it correctly. And that's at my level right now. If we get more cooldown reduction, which we definitely will in the end game, I don't see, there's no way you don't have 100% uptime on the Shadow Clone. So this is right here just not only really fun, but really good. Like when you're dungeon crawling, when you're trying to clear dungeons, having another Shadow Clone mimic what you're doing, having these blades spinning around you and come in from different angles, it really helps clear trash and clear mobs and get you from pack to pack way faster. Because one of the issues with Twisting Blades is that when it comes to you before it does the 360, the hitbox with the blade is actually pretty narrow. So if you've got a clone that's doing it with you at a different angle, because like the clone targets a random enemy, and then usually it's on the enemy you're on, but sometimes it's on a different target. It comes at these different angles, and you know, like if you use it on a target, then it's going to copy that, right? So you just get a lot more AoE value from having it on top of the damage that you have, right? So and then when it comes to the single target fight, you're running inner sight, and inner sight is just allowing you to have perma uptime on your shroud and your shadow clone. It's just really fun to play. Like it's extremely rewarding. So that's pretty much the build in a nutshell. Now, to kind of touch base on this just one more time, the dash and shadow step, this in my opinion are staples in this build because of two reasons. Number one, when it comes to boss fights, you're pretty squishy. Okay, you're pretty squishy outside of Dark Shroud. So these are essentially your defensive skills as well as your mobility, right? And having 2 charges on Shadow Step and 2 charges on Dash, believe me when I say you're going to use them. When it comes to dungeon clearing content, you're obviously going to use it more for that than the single target boss. But for dungeon clearing content, believe me when I say, when you're playing a Twisting Blades build, you're going to want both of these skills, and you will use both of these skills. It will help your clear time you will just clear things so much faster by having both these skills, and they're amazing. Now, the only downside to this build, it's not really a downside, it's actually a plus if you're into this thing, is I think this build, especially for the specifically for the dungeon clearing content, if you want to clear shit fast, it requires knowledge of the map, and it requires pretty good skill, because running inner sight with these 2 skills, if you move to the wrong pack, target the wrong pack, go to a dead end, or just misuse your skills, accidentally burn a shadow step or a dash that you shouldn't have, it will really affect your clear time quite a bit. It's something that I'm still practicing on as well. For example, you dash into a target and your other dash is already on cooldown. Let's say your other shadow step's already on cooldown because you've already used it. You've got 1 shadow step to get to the next pack. You've used your blades, your twisting blades. You need that shadow step to get to that next pack that's like 30 meters away. If you burn it, now you got to run. Now you do have movement speed, but now you got to run to the next pack, and you only have a few seconds for your blade to do an AoE around you. You're essentially resetting, and a lot of your damage comes at the end of the animation. So when you use your twisting blades, you have to wait for the boomerang effect to happen, which is 1.5 seconds after you use the skill, and then it starts twirling, right? So you lose time with that, and it just kind of feels smoked. Not to mention, you're losing uptime on your inner sight, which is the other thing. With inner sight, we're almost finished here. Sorry, guys. With the inner sight, if you don't have shadow step up, or if you burn it on the wrong target, then you're gonna lose uptime on inner sight. And if you have high uptime on inner sight itself is a big reason why it feels like you have permanent mana. Because if you burn your energy pool, it feels like you have permanent energy. If you burn your energy pool, if you fill your inner sight gauge, you immediately get full energy until that 4-second one is finished, and then you have full energy, and then you use that, and then rinse and repeat, right? So as you can see, as long as you keep your energy up and your landing skills, you're going to be dealing a lot of damage. So I would highly recommend taking both Shadow Step and Dash in this build. I think it's a staple. So that's pretty much it. If you're watching this on YouTube, we're going to go ahead and play some gameplay footage of me doing a world boss with this build, of me doing a regular dungeon boss, as well as doing some trash clearing. Keep in mind the trash clearing footage that you see, I'm still getting used to this. This is day 1, day 2 right now. So I'm still getting used to it. I don't know the maps. I'm still getting used to my binds, the buttons. I've been testing out a lot of different builds. So it's not going to be as good as what it could be, okay, so far. Hopefully I'll master this. I'm definitely going to practice a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you guys in the video now, so you guys could watch that. And we'll, as far as I go, this will be the end of this video for me. So if you guys like that content, or if you found this helpful, like and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Follow me on Twitch. Come ask me any questions that you have in regards to this build or anything in general with Diablo 4. You could always ask me that on Twitch. It's the best way to get a hold of me. So, yeah. I guess we're done, boys. Twitch chat, we're done. That went a little bit longer than we thought, but sorry. I try to get everything in there, like just the full... I'll see you guys in the next video. Smosh, though. Oh, yeah.
아 싫어.
싫어. Good job, guys. Well done. Easy clear. Yo, you're right. We do get the Legneraries.
Yeah, you don't get the box though. That's it.
Yeah, that's fine, man. I don't need the box. I don't need that shit.